Most people think once they get pre-approved, they're ready. Like, okay, I'm good. Let's go look at houses. And I get it because it feels like you've crossed a big milestone. We're talking to a lender, you've submitted your information, you've been told you're pre-approved. So naturally your mindset shifts to now I just need to find a house. But here's the reality. Getting pre-approved is not the finish line. It's the starting point. And what you do after that moment is going to dictate what and how smooth the process is actually going to be, or how stressful it becomes. And this is where I see a lot of people unintentionally get themselves into situations that they didn't plan for. So let's go ahead and slow this down for a second and really understand what the pre-approval is, because there's a lot of confusion around it. Pre-approval is not a guarantee. It's not a final approval. It is not a green light to go all the way to the edge of your budget. All it is a snapshot. It's saying, based on the information that we have, you qualify within this range. That's the reason that it matters, because life doesn't happen in snapshots. Things change. Income can change, debts can change, interest rates can definitely change. So if you treat a pre-approval like a locked-in result, you can run into problems later in the process. Now let's talk about what I actually see happen in real life. Someone gets pre-approved and almost immediately the mindset shifts. Instead of thinking, what works best for me, they start thinking, what's the most I can get? And that subtle shift is where things start to go sideways. They start browsing homes at the very top of their range. They start comparing properties based on features, finishes, and upgrades. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but they're not based on what actually fits their numbers. And then something happens. They find a home they really like, and it's no longer about strategy. It's about emotion, and once emotion enters the process, logic starts taking a back seat. The range problem. This is probably one of the biggest misunderstandings. When you get pre-approved, you're usually given a number or a range. Let's say you're approved up to $350,000, and most people interpret that as I should be looking at $350,000 homes. But that's not what that number is. The number is the ceiling. It's not the target. It's not the recommendation. It's just the upper limit of what works on paper. And there's a big difference between what works on paper and what works in your actual life. Because on paper, a lot of things can look fine, but month to month, that's a different story. So what should you actually do after getting pre-approved? This is where you take control of the process. Step one would be lock in your comfortable payment. Not your max, not your approval limit, your comfortable number. The one that lets you live your life without constantly thinking about your mortgage. Step two, work backwards into your price range. Now you're not guessing, you're not reacting. Now you have a framework. And step three, stay disciplined, because you're going to see homes that are slightly above your range. You're going to be tempted, and that's totally normal. But discipline is what protects you. Decision fatigue and emotion. This is where things really start to show up. You start touring homes, you start comparing options, you start thinking about where your furniture would go, and slowly, without realizing, you're stretching your criteria. It's only a little more, it's nicer, it's newer, it has this extra feature, and before you know it, you moved yourself outside the range you originally said you were comfortable with, because not that the numbers changed, but because emotions did. And that's something that you have to be aware of doing this. At the end of the day, there are two types of buyers: the ones who stay in control of their numbers and the ones who drift based on what they see. And the difference between those two experiences is huge. One feels confident, clear, in control. The other one feels reactive, uncertain, and sometimes even pressured. And that's not how this process should feel. So if you're thinking about buying, or you're about to get pre-approved, just remember this: pre-approval is not the end, it's the starting point. What matters is what you do after. If you approach it the right way, this process can be smooth, clear, and actually enjoyable. And if you don't, that's where people run into issues. I've seen it happen. And if you want help walking through your numbers and putting it together and making a plan that actually fits and makes sense for you, I'm here to help. No pressure, no obligation, just clarity. Links are in the description.